Hi everybody, so I want to talk about Jake Heppel. If you don't know who he is, he's the guy or one of the guys who arranged a banner drop, not a banner drop, but a banner towing behind an airplane over a Liverpool Burnley FC game on Monday over Etihad Stadium. And, immediately celebrities and activists and NGOs and influencers and everything mobilized to pretend that this was some shocking event. Oh my god, this guy is literally Hitler, blah blah blah, or whatever. White Lives Matter is such a controversial statement. And it's not that they said, we disagree with you on that one. No. This story and the way it's been done is in one way typical, but it's specific. For me, it especially stands out because of the power dynamics at play here. They're completely typical of the kind of states we live in these days. Western liberal globalist democracies, I suppose you could say. But the power dynamic is what matters here, because we have what are objectively elites: journalists, NGOs, actors, influencers, celebrities, whatever, politicians, even police, coming down on this guy, trying to tear him apart, hang, draw and quarter him. And he is a welder, and he's since been sacked. So think about that power dynamic. We have a guy who's, what you'd kind of loosely call working class. He's a welder. I don't know anything about the guy. I don't know him, but I assume he doesn't have too many stocks, shares, portfolios, usurious things like owning a portfolio of properties or nothing like that. He's an ordinary working man, and he's been sacked. What are they called? Paradigm Precision, the company he kind of works for, came out with the usual, we abhor this, this disgusting racism, and we didn't know about it, but he's gone, or whatever. And you're going, disgusting racism. He said White Lives Matter, right? And, the thing as well is that with all the Black Lives Matter going on, and all the statue toppling and violence and everything else, it's funny how they act surprised and shocked when they hear that, because they're not. It's perfectly natural that in a situation like this, with so much goading, that someone is naturally, an ordinary person is going to say, well, you know what, I think White Lives Matter too. And that they have this fake response to that of like, it's not that white lives don't matter, it's that right now black people are being denied their human rights. But of course, if you go on then to say, well, how is that? I'd like to argue the opposite. I'd like to argue that that's not true, and that the power dynamics, like I'm saying, are the other way, and black people are not particularly oppressed, whatever. I'd like to make that argument. Well, if you even begin to make that argument or suggest you might, they'll fire you too. So it's like, it's a blackmail of sorts. It's like, okay, so you're telling me the basis on which I can't say White Lives Matter, but if I argue with that or contest against it in any way, I'm gone too. So it's unquestionable from the start to finish. So it's bullshit when they give this whole thing, this patronizing thing. It's not that blah blah blah, and they try to explain it, but you don't get to argue back. We're explaining something to you that you don't get to disagree with. But anyway, he's been sacked, and so has his girlfriend. I think her name is Megan Rambat. I think it might be a Dutch name. I don't know, but she was sacked too, because of course all of these journalists and NGOs and stuff and activists probably trawl through everything they've ever said to find something, and she was sacked as well. And she works for I think it's like a reflexology, like, almost like a beautician's. So again, she's an ordinary working girl, and now they're both sacked in the middle of like a pandemic recession. And that's what I'm speaking to here, is the power dynamic, where it's like, who is the systemic oppression actually against, when these two people, particularly let's focus on Jake and the banner, can't say such a simple thing as White Lives Matter, right? And they act like it's the most horrific thing. It's so glaringly obvious, and I hope it kind of maybe wakes people up a little bit. A lot of people will say, well, why can't he say that? But the way they come down on him, and they take such pleasure, where does this guy work? Let's have your job, buddy. And a lot of the people who are driving this, not everybody, but a lot of people who are driving this, because I can't go around getting people fired from their jobs, right? It takes media, it takes all of that stuff put together, that kind of power dynamic, and he's sacked, and they're loving it, and it just, I spoke about this on a stream last night, but what I was trying to say, and this is before I knew he was fired, was that if he does get sacked, and by the way, it was great, he came out and said, I'm not apologising to start with, before he was sacked, and I hope he doesn't renege on that, on the slim chance that he ends up watching this, Jake, there's no point, that bridge is burned now. There's no point getting on your hands and knees at this point. I don't know, I'm sympathetic for someone losing their job like that. I don't want to say like, just go on the dole or something like that. But what I will say is that you should set up, and this is just my advice, you should set up a GoFundMe or something like it. GoFundMe would probably take it down on you. And I did notice on Twitter an account that purported to be Jake Heppel anyway, was saying, do not donate to these GoFundMes, they're fake, etc. Some other people were setting them up on his behalf or whatever. Well, if that's the case, then just, set up your own one. And I would say don't set up GoFundMe. Figure it out. I don't know. But anyone watching this in the comments, an alternative to GoFundMe, there has to be a way there. Even if you give your IBAN for your bank or some Revolut or something like that, to have people donate. Because I think someone like Jake in a situation like this, for such a simple but brave act of defiance, should be rewarded. It shouldn't be goodness of the heart. It shouldn't be pro bono. A guy like this did something that mattered to all of us. He said something very simple but very defiant, and we all enjoyed it. We said, great that someone's saying that. Well, now that he's suffering from it, we shouldn't be allowed to just say, oh well, tough. No. His problem is our problem, and particularly English people, but I think people around the world. It should not. I think he should be very well comforted in compensation for this, and we need to have that kind of parallel society where they can take you down in all sorts of ways, but we can lift people back up again. When I say we, look, just any ordinary person who would see the message he put on the plane and kind of agree with it, or at least not think that he should be fired for it. So I do think, on the off chance Jake sees this, and if he doesn't, someone who knows him or whatever, set up something like a GoFundMe. I'm not going to say a GoFundMe, but something like it to raise money. And who knows, you might raise 100k. I would absolutely love it. I would promote it myself in what small way I can all day long, because I would love to see you do really well, and then just give that finger back to them and say, yeah, you may have taken my job, but I have comfort money for a while, and I'll be fine, and I'll be looked after. And moreover, someone who agrees with what he said, who would agree with me, who is an employer, hire him. That kind of stuff, that needs to exist. If we have people in the crosshairs like this, in perpetuity, we'll never get anywhere, because you can't say simple things, or you can't express a normal point of view because the regime has so much power. There has to be a way for us to protect and circle the wagons on people who get singled out, people like Jake. So I don't know. I think that's my point for the night. Give me a subscribe as well while you're here, and let me know what you think in the comments as well. I don't know. Am I making sense? Do you agree? Like I said, if you know an alternative or alternatives to GoFundMe that are secure, or methods to raise money. And one more thing to Jake as well, or anyone in a position like Jake, do not be afraid to set up that GoFundMe or whatever it is, the equivalent of a fundraiser. You absolutely deserve it. It's not, someone might say you're putting the McDonald's cup out the begging bowl. No way. You deserve to be paid for your oppression and compensated. That is all it is. So yeah, hopefully, I just think we have to do this, because all they have is this financial terrorism at the end of the day. And it's really, really important that nationalists and just ordinary people across the West come up with ways to defend ourselves against it. So thanks for watching. See ya.